Well, we just finished a quiz on Assyria, and now we're moving into what is called the Neo-Babylonian Empire, or simply the Babylonian Empire. Remember the first Babylonian Empire? A long time ago. Do you remember what kind of people was that were in charge then? What tribe of people were in the old Babylonian Empire? The same tribe of people that invaded Egypt, known as the Hyksos. They were the tribe called Amorites. The Amorites were the old Babylonian Empire. Now, we have a new group of people who have come in and are in control of Babylon. And like I said, we call this the Neo-Babylonian Empire to distinguish it, or most people just call it the Babylonian Empire, kind of forgetting about the first one. These people are called Chaldeans. So the CH, Chaldeans. I think you'll see it in your notes there someplace. All right, so let's look at the major kings of this Neo-Babylonian Empire. First, we're going to see Nabopolassar. Then we're going to come across the next king, a name with whom you're familiar, Nebuchadnezzar. Right? You're familiar with him, are you not? And then we have Amon-Marduk, or Evil Merodach, spelled different ways, Neriglissar, Labashi-Marduk, and then Nabonidus. Now, some of these are not going to have too much impact on what happens in Babylon in the world, but the first couple and the last one are especially important for us. So let's begin with Nabopolassar. He's the one who established the Chaldean dynasty in 625 BC. In 612, he finished off the remaining Assyrian threat near the city of Haran. Look at this map real quickly. The city of Haran is up in this area. Babylon, of course, is over here. The Assyrians are up in this area. So the Babylonians have been fighting against the Assyrians, and they finally win this last battle in Haran. In 605, he sent his son, Nebuchadnezzar II, technically, we just call him Nebuchadnezzar, down then to finish off Egypt. And we'll get to that in a moment. All right, so there we have that information, defeating the Assyrians and then sending his son Nebuchadnezzar to do battle with the Egyptians. Now, what's happening, why are they fighting against Egypt? Well, I don't know if you remember before, we talked about how when Assyria started getting weak and we're fighting against Babylon, that Egypt got involved, and Egypt was coming up this direction in order to join Assyria against Babylon. Remember how we talked about before, Egypt always fought against Assyria, but this time they're joining Assyria. Do you remember why we said they changed their minds about this, why they're doing something different? Why are they joining the Assyrians instead of fighting against them for a change? Anyone remembers? It's because they could see that Babylon was the rising power. They were trying to prevent Babylon from taking over more and more. So Egypt was coming up to help the Assyrians just to keep Babylon at bay. The Pharaoh that was leading the Egyptian army up to help Assyria battle against Babylon was named Necho, N-E-C-H-O, Necho II. So he moved up through here, coming up through the area of Israel, going along the coast up here to join Assyria. Now, as he was passing through in the vicinity of the land of Israel, the king of Judah, whose name is Josiah, decided to go out against Necho. Necho said, "Don't come out against me. I've got nothing to do with you. I've got no bone to pick with you. I'm on my way to help Assyria." But Josiah thought that he should go out and stop Necho from fighting against Babylon. He kind of saw that Babylon was on the rise too. So he went out and decided to fight against Necho. And in the process, he lost his life. Well, Necho went on up to Assyria and was with Assyria when they were defeated at Carchemish by Babylon. Well, he wasn't captured, so he went back home. So he's got to pass on back by Israel again. And it was almost like the first time he said, "I'll be back." But he came through and decided he's going to take over Jerusalem and Judah. So on his way back, Josiah having already died, Necho decided who would be the next king, and he picked Jehoaz, who is the third son of Josiah, and put him on the throne as king. Necho, oh, I'm sorry, he did that on his way up. I'm sorry. He replaced Jehoaz after Josiah was killed. He replaced Jehoaz, put him as king. And then he was defeated at Carchemish. And on his way back, he got rid of Jehoaz and put the second son of Josiah on the throne, who is Jehoiakim. Jehoaz he took to Egypt in chains, where he died. Necho then imposed a levy of 100 talents of gold and silver on Jerusalem. So he's in control. He's going to get money from that. All right, so Judah is now in between Babylon and Egypt, and as they're going to fight against each other, Judah is going to be caught in the crosshairs. And so Nebuchadnezzar makes one of his 3 visits to Jerusalem. The first of them, he comes to Jerusalem because he's chasing after the fleeing Egyptians after the Battle of Carchemish. So Nebuchadnezzar is chasing them, and he gets as far as Jerusalem. But before he goes on to Egypt, he occupies the city, and he allowed Jehoiakim to continue on as his puppet king, now ruling under the Babylonians instead of the Egyptians. Nebuchadnezzar did take some of the temple treasury and key royal family back to Babylon, including Daniel and his 3 friends. So Nebuchadnezzar's come to Jerusalem, and now he's going back with some treasure and a few of the royal family, few of the smartest young people that were there. So Nebuchadnezzar has taken over and returned with Daniel and the 3 friends whom we know as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, in the east and the north, the Babylonian Empire bordered on the kingdom of the Medes. In the south was Egypt. 3 years after his surrender to Nebuchadnezzar, Jehoiakim felt ready to revolt, and so he held the tribute payment that was due. The reaction was swift. First, the Babylonians directed the unrest of Judah's neighbors against her, mainly in the east. So those nations that were on the east, Babylon encouraged, you guys go ahead and attack Judah. Then the Chaldean army came up against it in 598 BC and besieged it. At the start of the siege, Jehoiakim died. Some think he may have been murdered. So, who comes next? His son Jehoiachin. So we go from Jehoiakim to Jehoiachin. Now, Jehoiachin's in a rough place. His father has just withheld tribute from Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar has come with his troops and has surrounded the city. And now what's Jehoiachin going to do? He's just become king. What would you do if you were Jehoiachin? You see the circumstances. What would you do? Yeah, that'd be the smart thing, right? And that's what he does. He surrenders to Nebuchadnezzar and was taken in exile then to Babylon. Along with many of his family and notables of the kingdom, including Ezekiel, the prophet, a number of princes, judges, soldiers, craftsmen, and smiths. Around 10,000 people were taken to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also took the rest of the treasures to Babylon. And Nebuchadnezzar put Zedekiah, the fourth son of Josiah, on the throne as king. Now, Zedekiah was a man who had a weak character and was unsuited for rule, especially in troubled times. And in 589 BC, with the feeble assistance of Egypt, Zedekiah was drawn into a new rebellion against Babylon on the advice of other states in the area. You know how it was, maybe when you were younger, other people, your friends said, hey, let's do this. Let's wear this. Everybody wear this tomorrow. And then you show up tomorrow and you're the only one that's wearing that. Ever have that happen to you? Or let's do something and you're the only one that ends up doing it. Well, that's what happened to Zedekiah. When Nebuchadnezzar's punitive army arrived, Zedekiah was abandoned by his allies to face the battle alone. The Edomites also took advantage of this and attacked Judah at the southern border. This time the Babylonians had no pity. The cities of Judah were destroyed one after another. Finally, Jerusalem was besieged. The siege was lifted for a short time because the Egyptians were rumored to be approaching, but then it was reimposed, lasting 30 months, almost 3 years, surrounded with no food getting in and no one able to leave. Can you imagine? What would it be like if we were stuck in Columbiana for 3 years with nothing coming in? It got pretty bad. In the summer of 587, the walls of the city were breached and Jerusalem was captured. A month later, the Babylonians broke down the city walls and burned the entire city, including the temple. They took many of the survivors into exile. All right, Zedekiah was captured, and along with his sons, they were brought before Nebuchadnezzar, and Zedekiah's sons were brought in front of him, and his sons were executed in front of Zedekiah, and then they blinded Zedekiah. So the last thing he saw was his own sons being executed. He was then carried into Babylon, where he died. More people were exiled in 582 BC. Most of the exiles settled in various villages on the Kheber River near Nippur and Babylon. So most of them settled in this area, right there. The number of exiles is given in Jeremiah 52, if you're interested in looking at that. Although that may include only the important families. Now tomorrow we're going to talk about the city of Babylon. It was very impressive. And in preparation, or actually in response to what we saw today and the destruction of Jerusalem, I want you to read and highlight the article, Destruction of the First Temple. Read and highlight the article, Destruction of the First Temple. And tomorrow we'll find out more about the city of Jerusalem. By the way, at the same time that this is going on, in Rome, they coined their first money. So they're starting to get civilized there. All right. You may use the time we have left to start on